Hey everyone, Alex or the Arbitrary Voice here, and this is going to be quite a long video, hopefully not too long. Basically, I'm trying to fit in seven similar but different enough that I want to showcase them separately decks into this one video because they're all Dredge decks and they're all quite similar. If you want to know how I went into making these decks in a bit more detail, try to understand like the decisions that I made a bit more, please watch the first series of videos that I did earlier in the summer on Grixis Dredge with Bridge from Below, because I feel like I'm not going to have time to go into too much detail with this one. So in front of you here I have some cards which I want to talk about, because these are some of the cards which I've been trying in the Dredge decks, and some of them are really cool, and I just want to talk about them a little bit. The first one is Nether Traitor. The reason I want to talk about this one first is because I had no idea this card existed until one wonderful person contacted me after my previous series of videos on Dredge, saying that they played a similar deck at their local game store, and it had a few differences to my deck, but the main one was this card, Nether Traitor, which, as I said, I had no idea existed, and it's actually really good. It has haste and shadow, which means it's very good at pushing through damage. It is just a 1/1. However, it says whenever another creature is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, you may pay black. If you do, return Nether Traitor from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you have a couple of black spare, this card suddenly becomes incredible because you can end step sacrifice your Bloodghasts, get zombies from your Bridge from Belows, pay black, get Nether Traitors back, sacrifice those, get more zombies. You can also, it helps for pushing through damage when you're stuck behind a Tarmogoyf or a um, Tasigur or a Gurmag Angler. Um, all the while you can sacrifice it and make more zombies. It also triggers when your zombies die because it doesn't say non-token, which is amazing because it means you have your random zombies. They're gonna die. They're gonna get blocked by something. You're gonna need to sacrifice them so your bridges don't leave the graveyard. You can get Nether Traitors back and make even more zombies. It's it's just a really good card in the deck, and I really like it. And it's a third cheap creature which you can sacrifice repeatedly, and it's great. And the other really major card that I've been playing with is Life from the Loam, and the Flame Jab and Raven's Crime kind of go with it because they're two retrace cards that work really well with it. I've also recently picked up an Academy Ruins, but I haven't got any artifacts, enough artifacts to go with it to mess around with, like having an Academy Ruins package in any of my Dredge decks. But that's something that I want to try at some point. But I've not done that yet. So far, I'm just limited to playing with Flame Jab, which is a really good card. It kills stuff like it kills stuff that we have to interact with, like against Infect, it kills things. Against Affinity, it kills things. Against Delver decks, it kills things. It kills Snapcaster Mage as well, which is quite nice. Just great card. Raven's Crime really good against Control, because you just rip their hand apart and then they're top decking and you just do what you like basically on your turns, and they might have a counter, but you just play your Raven's Crime first, and then they have to counter the Raven's Crime or discard it, and it's just a really good card. Timoret, I've played him in a couple of my decks. He's really nice. He's another hard to interact with sacrifice outlet because you can just dredge. Oh, I hit some Timerets, sacrifice my stuff, get some zombies. However, he is quite costly. I know it's only two, but that's still quite costly when you're wanting to sacrifice stuff repeatedly. Um, Also, when you have to pull him out of your graveyard, then play him from your hand, and then start sacrificing stuff. So it only really works well with stuff like Life from the Loam, when you because you have ways to make quite a lot of land drops, and it only works like really, really well in the really grindy games and the really grindy matchups. But unfortunately, those tend to have removal, which makes them kind of less good. But I still have quite enjoyed playing him, and found and have had some success with him. I've also been playing with a couple of discard outlets. I'll just move this one over here because these are our four discard outlets really. These two are quite similar in that they're 2 mana, they go on the battlefield, you have to have them in your hand to start with, and they make power basically. Lot Left Troll, you can discard a creature, specifically a creature, to put a +1/+1 counter on him. And Zombie Infestation, you can discard 2 cards of any card to put zombies into the battlefield. I don't know if that noise is on the recording, but I keep hearing it. It's weird. But yeah, Lot Left Troll, I like it. I like it a lot, but it doesn't play very well with Bridge from Below because you can't discard your bridges to it. You're going to attack with this guy, and it's gonna get chump blocked. Something's gonna go underneath it, or it's gonna get blocked. And yes, you can regenerate it, but it doesn't feel great having this like huge like 6/5 maybe, and you just can't attack with it because you're scared of your bridges leaving the graveyard. Even though even though he is a creature, so when he dies, he will make zombies. Like it's just frustrating. Zombie Infestation, however, you can discard bridge to it. However, the fact that you're playing this over like a creature can make your cards which rely on creatures worse. So like Bridge from Below and Gnaw to the Bone if you're playing green as well. If you're playing copies of this as opposed to Lot Left Troll, it does make those cards worse. Conflagrate is great. It adds some like interaction as well as being able to discard several cards. With Life and Loam, I've managed to Conflagrate for 10 and just kill somebody out with 10 damage before. It's just it's a really good card actually. And there's also some cool stuff that you can do with it that I'll mention later or hopefully show in a video. Lightning Axe is pretty good because it kills Tasigur, it can usually kill Tarmogoyf, and it can kill Gurmag-Angler. And those are like big fat bodies which it's hard to push through with this deck, unless you can make loads of zombies. You're not going to be able to. It's really hard to beat those cards. So we have Lightning Axe, which just kills them straight up. Although this is only in one deck because I remembered it fairly late on into my fiddling around, and also it definitely is better in that deck than the other ones, I think. Finally, we have Vengeful Pharaoh. This is currently only in the sideboard of one of my decks. That's because it plays really, really badly with Bridge from Below. Because there's so many situations where you're only going to like lose your bridges because he doesn't say may. So if a creature does combat damage to you, it gets destroyed and you lose all the bridges that are in your graveyard. So there can be situations where like you might have 2 Narcomoebas and they cast Lingering Souls last turn. So they attack you with their 2/1/1s. You have a choice. You block with your Narcomoebas and get zombies, but then your bridges leave, or you take 2 damage, you kill one of the Lingering Souls, and with a Vengeful Pharaoh, and your bridges leave. So it's kind of annoying. The reason it's currently in the sideboard is I recognise that there are some matchups where bridge doesn't seem very good. I don't actually know whether it is bad because obviously Bloodghast can't block, but if you have a bridge in your graveyard, you can kill the Bloodghast and get creatures, and you can repeatedly keep doing this. So you can. It's hard to say which one's better, so that's why this is currently just in the sideboard of one of my decks. So that's all those cards gone through. So now we will go to the actual decks. This is the Grixis deck that I played last time, with a couple of tweaks. Basically, I've taken out some cards. I think Extractor Demon I took out. I think these Inquisitions were in the main deck last time. I put in Nether Traitors. I've explained why that's good. It is really good. Um, for those of you who didn't watch my last video, the plan of this deck is basically to make free or cheap creatures. So we have Narcomoebas, Bloodghast, and now Nether Traitors, and then sacrifice them repeatedly to Greater Gargazon or Drowned Sulker while we have a Bridge from Below in the graveyard, um, making lots and lots of zombies. We have a lot of ways to get bridges, Narcomoebas, and Bloodghast into the graveyard. We have 4 Golgari Grave Troll, 4 Stinkweed Imp, 4 Hedron Crab, and 4 Drowned Sulker. And to facilitate the Hedron Crab, we have 6 fetchers. So yeah, if you want to know more about this deck, please watch my other video. I'll put a link for it. When I got back into playing Magic Online, people were playing Land and Control because it just won GP Oklahoma. I realised that I actually had quite a good matchup with this deck because they can't control your draw step very well because you just keep dredging. However, Ensnaring Bridge was really awful for me, and I wanted to figure out how I could beat that. So basically, I went to Jund instead of Grixis. Jund gives us access to Ancient Grudge. It also lets us play Tiramet because we can play Life from the Loam. It also lets us play Flame Jab and Conflagrate. These are basically the important cards against that deck, the Lantern Control deck, because Ancient Grudge will let us kill Ensnaring Bridge and it will let us kill Grafdigger's Cage, which we couldn't do in this deck. We basically just had to be like, okay, you have hate, I concede, or Inquisition or Duress it. In the Jund version, we can kill the hate fairly effectively, and then even if our opponent, our Lantern Control player, plays an Ensnaring Bridge, we can still kill them with Conflagrate, Flame Jab, and Tirmaret with direct damage, which is basically the why this deck is in the configuration that it is because this deck was built with Lantern Control in mind. I'm also playing. I wanted to try State Wayfinder in this deck. I was originally thinking about playing Mulch, but I'm also playing Gnaw to the Bone, so more creatures is better. Golgari Grave Troll is castable in this deck, so more creatures is better. Bridge from Below, more creatures is better. And Timoret, more creatures is better. I'm also playing Raven's Crime in this deck with the Life from the Loam. Green is pretty good because it gives us access to Life from the Loam and therefore Timoret. It gives us access to Gnaw to the Bone. Yeah, and Ancient Grudge. Instead of playing. So in this deck, I decided to play these colors instead of Grixis because because I could still cast my Bloodghasts, I could still use Nether Traitors, I could still do everything that the deck did. The only thing that I lost was like Narcomoeba in this version of the deck, Hedron Crab, and Drowned Sulker. Hence these colours. However, with this deck, I was finding that I didn't really make that many creatures for free. So I decided to try, and therefore wasn't triggering my Bridge from Below very much. So I decided to try it without the bridges. Now I never played this version against Lantern Control, but I suspect it might be better. Although don't quote me on that, because basically moving bridges made a lot of my cards worse. It made Greater Gargadon worse. It made Timoret worse. It made Nether Traitor. Nether Shadow is the legacy one. It made Traitor worse. And this let me put an Ancient Grudge in main. It let me put Tormenting Voices in main so that we could start dredging earlier. It let me put an additional Conflagrate in as well for more fireballs, and it let me play these slot left trolls, which can get pretty big pretty quickly, and lets you really race people. But I didn't stay on this deck very long because I really wasn't enjoying playing without Bridge from Below, because I've actually been really enjoying that card. So shortly after building this deck, I tried putting the Narcomoebas back into Jund. Basically, I'm not sure. I don't really remember what I took out. Oh yeah, I took out like the Conflagrates and the Flame Jabs and Raven's Crime and some of the one-offs and stuff to make this version. I also took out the Sata Wayfinders because I wasn't finding them that good. I put in the Narcomoebas and I put in Golgari Brown Scales and I put in the Lot Left Trolls because otherwise, if Narcomoeba's in my hand, it's pretty much a dead card. All it does without Lot Left Troll is get discarded to Faithless Looting. With Lot Left Troll, um, it gets to be a +1/+1 counter, which is better than being a dead card, um, as far as I'm concerned. And if we can, obviously when we get it into our graveyard, it's like a +1/+1 counter and potentially 2 life from Naught to the Bone. I did quite enjoy playing this deck. However, it still wasn't quite there for me. I also took out the Greater Gargadons. I left out the Greater Gargadons from the same as Bridgeless Jund because I realised with this deck I could just start dredging and then keep dredging because I could, as long as I had a green source and one other mana, I could start to get Timorets back and use those to sacrifice things, which this does mean that I don't trigger Bridge from Below as often, and it's harder to get the Nether Traitors back, but it's still, um, I feel quite good because you end up with a lot of mana from Life from Below essentially. Um, so, but the problem that I was having with this was that it was quite slow, that it wasn't making those big explosive things, and that's big explosive amounts of zombies, and that's kind of what I wanted from the deck. So then I moved over to 4-color Dredge because I wanted those Hedron Crabs back because they can dump so many. If you play Hedron Crab turn 1 and then Fetch Land turn 2, you can dump so many cards into your graveyard so quickly. I also really like Drown Stalker. I think it's a really good grindy card, and this made me able to cast the Narcomoebas, which just kind of felt better than just discarding them to lot left, relying on discarding them to lot left troll. So in this deck, this is very similar to the Grixis deck, except we're not playing Nether Traitors because getting all that black mana I found was too difficult. Um, I considered playing Mulch a lot more in this deck to help like find the right colours of mana. I'm also playing Life from the Loam. And then there's a couple of like one-offs like Dark Blast and Raven's Climb, and it might be and Flame Jab and Ancient Grudge, and it might be a good idea to just take those out and put the four mulches in. Maybe I'll try that later. But this basically I feel what this deck needs is more shocks, and currently I don't have the money to get those. Maybe when my student loan comes in, I'll pick up some more shocks on Magic Online, and we'll try this again. Currently, it's just too inconsistent, I find. Also, the sideboard needs fixing because these Nether Traitors shouldn't be here. Other than that, though, it's quite a fun deck to play. It's just really inconsistent. So to try and improve the consistency, but to keep the potential explosiveness, I decided to, instead of playing Grixis or Jund, the two bits that I'm highlighting, I decided to get rid of the black and play Timur. Timur? I can't pronounce that. So this is the first version of the Timur deck. Basically, I wanted to go back to playing like Conflagrate and Flame Jab. Um, and this also let me be able to cast the Narcomoebas. Now this time I had the problem of the blood gas getting stuck in my hand, but with Conflagrates, this actually isn't that much of a problem. With Drown Sulker, it becomes not much of a problem. Basically, we have a lot more ways of like dumping them into our graveyard, which doesn't just feel like we're throwing them away to get a +1/+1 counter, and also we don't have to play Lot Left Troll with Bridge from Below, which also feels quite bad because of the thing that I mentioned before. However, the problem that I was having with this, um, I played this for a really long time and I really enjoyed it, but the problem that I was having with this deck was that I had all this like interaction in these two conflagrates and these two flame jabs, but I wasn't wanting to use it because I was always dredging. I was always throwing bridges into my graveyard and basically not wanting to kill stuff that I really needed to get rid of so that I didn't lose my bridges. So that led me to change the deck up a bit. In that I know this doesn't look very different, but it is because I've dropped Stinkweed Imps. Um, we don't have anywhere near as many dredge cards. We're playing much more interaction because we're playing the 4 lightning axes, which has been stellar, by the way, in killing Tassigers and stuff. We're also playing those Vengeful Pharaohs in sideboard that I mentioned. Um, if we need to, we can dredge very, very quickly because we have these 3 Tormenting Voices and we have the 4 Faithless Lootings, which let us dredge a lot of cards really quickly. And we also have the staples of our 4 Bridges, 4 Bloodgusts, and 4 Narcomoebas. We are not playing any Sacrifice Atlas in this deck because I took out the Greater Gargadons. Essentially, what I realised was if I was playing all this interaction, um, when I had bridges in the graveyard, I could just use it on my own creatures to create value rather than feeling like I couldn't cast it at all. And this way, with Conflagrate, if I have like 8 cards in my hand and 4 creatures in play, I can Conflagrate, discard my whole hand, deal 4 to my creatures, and deal 4 to them or to their creatures, and that way I can kill their stuff and get zombies. But I didn't really need the sacrifice outlets at all. They were just kind of 4 dead cards in my deck, which didn't do anything besides like be a creature for Norton Bone pretty much, or Scarbrutinator when I sided it in. And this is currently my favorite version of the deck. I feel like I would like to have another Hedron Crab somehow, but I don't really know what to cut. I might end up cutting one of these Drown Resolkers so that I have 2 of those and 3 Hedron Crabs. And I might change some of the islands out. But yeah, this deck is just really cool, and I really enjoy playing it. And that's I've now gone through like all the decks that I've made so far. There's a couple of things that I still want to do, which is I picked up an Academy Ruins recently. I really want to try Life from Loam and Academy Ruins and some artifacts like Engineered Explosives. I don't know what else. I'll find something and try that in Dredge because I feel like you can hit them quite easily. I'd like to try a version including white. I'm not sure what colours that would be, but I'd like to be able to cast Ray of Revelation from my hand, and I also want to try out playing stuff like Unbearable Rights for LS Norn with Bridge from Below, because making all those zombies into 4/4s seems like exactly what I want to be doing. However, I'm a bit worried about um, how that would work. But it's definitely something I want to try because I enjoy the idea of the Gifts Ungiven decks, and I like Unbearable Rights for huge things when you've dumped stuff into your graveyard. So I think it is something that I'd like to try. But yeah, that's going to be everything for this video. That was really long. I'm sorry. Thank you for sitting through that if you did. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see me play some games with these decks, please, please, please do subscribe. And if you're that guy that suggested the Nether Traitors to me, thank you, and please comment and remind me what your name was, because I think I lost the comment thingy. I might be able to find it again. And yeah, if you have any suggestions, anything you think might be good in any of these dredge decks, anything you think that I should change, comment, please. I really want these decks to be good. I really enjoy playing Dredge in Modern. It's something that people don't expect, and it's something that I really enjoy. And yeah, just thank you again. Like, subscribe, especially comment, watch my other videos, and tune in soon for some games with these dredge decks.